Welcome back to 40 Reviews, everyone. It's me, Professor Pretentious, your reviewer, and today we are reviewing, it's that horror thriller. It stars Danielle Deadwyler as a harsh mother with trust issues. It's set on an isolated farm where she's invaded by an unknown assailant that forces her to grapple with her inability to let go of the past. It's the one with guns, a truck that won't start, and a brutal ending. You know the one. Yep, that's it. 40 Acres. Okay. All joking very much not aside, this will be my first non-official horror film on the channel. So, let's just play a really quick formalist game of is it horror or is it cake? So, the genre defining can be tedious, but we'll use horror philosopher Noel Carroll's overly simplistic definition just to get it out of the way. He has these three qualifiers. Does it have a monster? Does it evoke fear and disgust? And does it involve a sense of discovery on the part of the viewer, much like a mystery? Okay, this first one. Not so many spoilers here ahead. Does it have a monster that's unnatural? Yeah, I think so. It has cannibals. So with this one, you can kind of think Bone Tomahawk or The Road, or even Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It doesn't have that same tone, but I mean, let's look at those. What do you think? Does it evoke fear and disgust, too? Yes, there's some absolutely vile scenes with really horrific sound effects. Does it involve a sense of discovery on the part of the viewer? Yes, we want to know how farmers are dying. We want to know who the antagonists actually are. Which might bring us back to the monster. Do we know the monster is? Is it unnatural? Yes. Maybe it's horror, maybe it's not. I'm just going to say, suck it, Noel Carroll. Suck it, genre purists. Suck it, AMC theaters. It qualifies. Okay, I saw this with a friend under the screen unseen at AMC theaters. Usually if it's a horror movie, they will call it Scream Unseen, but it did not have that. So technically, they would say it's not a horror movie. So, let's just get this out of the way real quick. And you know what? I can just make this a really short review. It's Parable the Sower. It's Parable the Talents. All right, bye everyone. No, seriously, it's really the Parable series. It's sort of a mashup between Parable the Sower and Parable of the Talents. It sort of starts 40 Acres, sort of where Parable the Talents actually starts, where they already have this family commune sort of set up. But a lot of the themes and setup is very much related to the first part, the first half of Parable the Sower. I try not to bring my teacher cred into every single review that I do, but in this one in particular, I've been teaching Parable the Sower to my 8th graders for 3 years. I'm not even looking into this. Okay, this one fell right in my lap. They even mention in the first 10 minutes Parable of the Sower. One of the daughters is reading it instead of reading her socialist text, essentially. So it's there. It's right there in the surface. It's become a really popular book in the past few years. And a lot of it is because it takes a very particular approach, which is a dystopian novel that is set 2025, okay? We're getting near our sci-fi expiration date. And it involves a world that's very much like our own now. There's a president who's a lot like Donald Trump. There's massive inequality in the world, violence, homelessness, economic inequality, climate disaster, and people are largely disenchanted with the federal government. And a lot of people have boarded up into cities and suburbs, and the main character, Lauren, lives in a walled city, or a walled suburb, essentially, which is meant to be somewhere around Pasadena. This movie deals very much with these same concepts. It's from the perspective of a younger person right around the coming of age, and it asks these questions about how do you build community in the tail end of the Anthropocene era, where these vicious cycles and wicked complexities predominate our culture and our society. And it looks at that from a less science fiction standpoint. However, Parable the Sower itself aside from one or two elements, really stands as a pretty stark realist dystopian novel. And I would say 40 Acres comes more from that vein of Octavia Butler storytelling and less the science fiction or the science fiction horror. It reflects a lot of the same themes of Parable of the Sower. And 40 Acres, you see these massive themes of trust and empathy as becoming themselves larger scale survival skills and much more longer term survival skills rather than paranoia and self interest. The final one is the concept of the value of spirituality in crisis as a way to produce hope and build community to keep people going, to keep people connected. And a lot of these themes are right at the forefront of 40 Acres. It's a really good unofficial adaptation of a huge chunk of Parable of the Sower. People have been trying to adapt it for years, have been looking to, they've been talking about miniseries. As this book becomes more and more popular in the educational sphere and is assigned more and more to high school students and in college, it's coming on people's radars. Every time I talk to parents, they say, "Oh, you're reading Parable the Sower? Oh my God, I love that book." Parable the Sower, 40 Acres is brutally violent and a really oppressive tone to the movie, which makes an incredible thriller, I gotta say. That said, that is a lot like this book. You have to ask the question, if there's a plot that's familiar, is it classic? Is it something that runs deep to our core, like a Joseph Campbell type of Hero with a Thousand Faces type of story? Or is it just cliche plot? Is it recycled, lazy writing? And on any given day, it could be either. So even I'll take my opinion with a... In order to answer that question, I'm going to look towards the cumulative effect. There are some surrounding features in it that ring to me inauthentic. Does the radio call room need to have all these expository news clippings on the wall? Is that something that in a dystopia we'd really want to be remembering? Does the whole arsenal room where they keep all of their firearms require backlighting like it's a Mission Possible movie? Probably not. But I ultimately feel that all these can be overlooked in favor of the bigger picture. The film does utilize flashbacks and thematic title cards, which could themselves be seen as cliche, but the way that they are presented is quite artfully, and every possible other expository reveal, either relating to character or to plot, is presented with an inexplicit or an authentic line of dialogue that doesn't really rub it in our face. And I can appreciate that, particularly in the conversations that Daniel Deadwyler's character is having over the radio with other characters. The director here, R.T. Thorne, brings out some excellent performances. Daniel Deadwyler has always shown herself to be pretty intense, but I feel like she provides a depth in this movie that I haven't seen since she was in Till. She brings in these moments of tenderness that really soften this hard-ass Marine character that she is, and it's enough to ignite the internal conflict that continues throughout the story and builds near the end. And all the performances are great, but the primary conflict revolves around her and her son Manny. They make really these two performances the most noteworthy ones. The cinematography in this film is perhaps the most surprising. It's incredibly arresting. The visual language and the aesthetic is so precise in the film. The film uses high contrast in natural surroundings, and it captures the sumptuous greens, blues, and oranges of the Canadian wilderness. The setting is both arresting and definitely intentionally seductive to the senses. It's always possibly misleading to us all. We're always in these surroundings recognizing the beauty of the visuals while also having to be keenly aware of our surroundings that we don't get sliced or diced or chewed on. Really, the most notable thing about this movie is the suspense in it. It could have been the caffeine that I had when I was watching this, but this is one of the more intense film-going experiences I've had recently, and I've done a lot of reviews this year so far for horror movies. Much like Parable the Sower, it sets up an extremely assaultive surrounding that contrasts an oppressive sense of danger in the surrounding world with a very vulnerable comfort of family within the main circle. It does this even better than a survival horror film like A Quiet Place, because it feels like the survival rules of the surrounding world aren't clear. And this is to the benefit of it. We know the rules in A Quiet Place, but this one is that we understand the basic rules, but not exactly every rule to abide by. There's a chaos to it that doesn't exist in a film like A Quiet Place, where there's a central conceit and we understand the rules. Not only are the rules unclear, but also the antagonists are unclear. Who the antagonists are, which makes for incredibly paranoid viewing. As viewers, we too are also selectively isolated. We don't go off outside into the world as often, and it tends to happen later on in the movie. So this film burns slowly, which makes me wonder if they would pay it off, which they really do at the right time in the movie, and never at any times where I expect them to pay it off. So it really did keep me on the edge of my seat, and that entire tone that they set up in this world, the tone of constant hazard, is released through that third act, somewhere around that third act. Again, not where I expected. There's also enough carnage towards the protagonist that the win feels, oh, the big word, we love it as writers, earned by the screenwriters. Now, I promise no spoilers, but I'm going to let one thing slip. I feel like the ending might have been more impactful if one aspect in that sunnier ending hadn't been included in the final cut. Maybe you can tell me what it is in the comments if you're interested. I don't want to go any further than that. So get ready for a pretentious alert. I don't even have to put on my tinfoil hat on this one. They make it pretty clear and explicit from the title alone. This is a post-colonial horror movie, in a way that other movies involving people of color haven't really been able to do in a while. It plays on the horrors of two of the historically most oppressed demographics in the US, African Americans and Native Americans. So despite being a Canadian film, it's very much about trying to escape the American colonial system through agrarian socialism. They create a farm. They are self-sustaining. It's a variation on anarchism, but there is a highly defined hierarchy also. We as viewers are meant to take on this post-colonial viewpoint. We're supposed to see how the ideals work. We are meant to see how their wariness of others, often white people, has protected them. We see how their sense of land ownership has provided for them. We see how the militant Marxist education has helped unite them and educate them. We see how the overall mistrust of governmental bodies continues to keep them autonomous and safe. They've created a post-colonial utopia. However, again, without getting into spoilers, the method with which they're drawn back into conflict evokes a really familiar cycle on American colonialism of indigenous people. So it sets these similar traps that we know are the structural inequalities that show up within American culture. And as is often the case, a lot of the best critiques of our country, I feel like, come from the outside. So, just off the top of my head, 2000 AD, or the Judge Dredd series, is one of the best critiques of American authoritarianism in the comic book industry. Probably Watchmen by Alan Moore as well. And Armando Iannucci, who wrote Vice, has an excellent satire of the American political machine. So I know 40 Acres is coming out the same weekend as 28 Years Later. You know, you might have to pick your battles. I'm starting to see a lot of these movies getting pushed out pretty quickly. This is a big summer for horror. So, for example, Dangerous Animals at my local AMC, the week after it was released, they were giving it one showing, which was a 9:15 a.m. showing. It's almost like they were hoping to bury this movie. And I don't know. It's too bad. It's a good one, but I think only so many movies can take up so many screens. And They've really truly been holding out for Sinners and Final Destination, and to some degree bring her back as well. So if you're going out to the movies and you want to see a double feature, here's my recommendation: go and pay for 40 Acres, and then maybe see 28 years later. Hey, do yourself a nice little double feature, because again, we want to show them where the money should go. This is a first time director for this movie. It's incredibly well produced on pretty much every level. So, and in some ways, it's scarier than a lot of the movies that have come out recently. It really is a truly thrilling movie. And dare I say, horror? I think dystopian horror. Let's be less fundamentalist about this, okay? So, go and check it out. Tell me what you think, and I will see you next time.